Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, sir. All right. Guys, I've got bad news. I just got off the phone with Papa Goodell, and he's not pleased with the NFL's earning projections. Apparently, they're only supposed to increase by a measly few $billion, and he's already threatening to remove bye weeks altogether and add a final 18th game. For now, I was able to talk him off the ledge, and instead persuaded him into maybe adding an expansion team, run and coached by me, specifically for the purpose of generating more revenue for the league. And considering this entire conversation is something that I just hallucinated, I can sign whatever players I want to do that, from whatever year, active, retired, dead, they're all on the table. It's obviously very kind of Roger to let me live out my dream as an NFL executive, so I want to make sure I repay him. This team needs to draw as many eyes as possible. After all, the road to riches these days is paved with thousands of mouse clicks. But don't hear what I'm not saying. I don't care if this team wins. What I do want is for there to be so many controversies that the beat writers have their own beat writers. So, in the name of that sweet cash money, let's build the most dysfunctional NFL team of all time. To kick things off, I'm going to need an offense. Defense wins championships, but doesn't trend all that well on Twitter, so they can wait. Going from the top down, I want a coordinator who commands and deserves zero respect from his players, so I'm going to go bold and bring in Bobby Petrino to run the offense. For those who don't know, Bobby Petrino is a spineless little weasel man who was the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons for less than a full season in 2007, with his team starting 3-10 after Mike Vick was suspended for letting the dogs out, or something like that. It's obviously not easy to finish a lost year like that, so Petrino just elected not to. He quit just days after telling the owner he would ride out the year, and didn't even have the nerve to tell his players in person. He just left a 4-sentence note on their locker and disappeared in the middle of the night to go accept a gig at Arkansas. And you know what? To his credit, he almost managed to stay out of the news there, until he got into a motorcycle crash with a staffer that he was actually cheating on his wife with. Sniveling, gutless, and somehow still actually coaching, welcome to the team, Bobby. Now, for the face of our franchise at quarterback. Lots of good options here, but none can ultimately compare to the pure train wreck appeal of Johnny Football in his prime. In February of 2016, Johnny Manziel flamed out of the NFL for what was presumed to be the last time, following a number of incidents with the Cleveland Browns. Among the highlights were flipping off opposing teams, putting on a fake mustache and going by the name Billy Vegas to go party the night before a game, and of course lots and lots of throwing the ball to the wrong team. But I'm willing to put all of that behind us in order to immediately hit number one in jersey sales. And based on his recent play in the fan-controlled football experiment, he'll be as fun to watch as ever before. But then again, what if he gets hurt, or maybe is a little hungover on game day? Well, in the spirit of keeping things thoroughly blanketed in drama, I'm enlisting Aaron Rodgers to be our backup quarterback. And since I am the GM and the coach, we're not pulling Johnny unless he physically cannot play, no matter how god-awful things get. And I wholeheartedly expect Aaron to understand and respect that decision. We do have to move the ball somehow, though, so at running back, we're going to bring in none other than O.J. Simpson to slice through defenses. OJ, of course, is famous for being the only player to ever rush for 2,000 yards in a 14-game season, and also nothing else. Now, we'll need to buy Juice a new pair of gloves, but once we do, he should serve as a solid option out of the backfield as well. And since he's already got a great social media presence, he should really improve engagement for us in that area.
Take care.
Okay, I gotta be honest, I'm still not stoked about our firepower offensively, so I want to fill the receiving core out with elite talent in order to give this team something resembling a chance. First, naturally, give me 2019 Antonio Brown, who became a living legend for Raider Nation after being traded there via the Steelers, who he had a bit of a falling out with the previous season. In fact, here's him being introduced to the press in Oakland for the very first time.
I'm here to just be a surge of energy, of positivity, and a good force, a great teammate, and bring out the best of everyone around me, because we all know it's not just about me.
Following this heartwarming sentiment, it was all about AB. Let me just get my list here. showing up to training camp in a hot air balloon, threatening to retire from the NFL because he wasn't allowed to wear his old helmet, getting fined for not showing up to camp, posting those fines on social media, trying to fight his general manager and calling him a cracker, recording his coach on a phone call so he could use it on his YouTube channel, demanding a release from the Raiders, getting released from the Raiders.
Grandma, they freed me! They freed me, Grandma!
Signing with the Patriots, catching a touchdown pass from Tom Brady, being accused of heinous things, threatening said accuser over text, getting released by the Patriots. Antonio Brown seems to be mostly getting things back on track as I make this video, and now even has a Super Bowl ring, so, that's good to hear. But for the purposes we're seeking, there was truly no greater meltdown in recent NFL lore than the Ballad of Mr. Big Chest. So Blonde Mustache AB will serve as our ex-receiver. Across the field, we're going to bring in another player known by their initials who happens to also be incredibly demanding of the ball and the spotlight, Prime Terrell Owens. T.O. is regarded as one of the best wide receivers in NFL history as well, but it speaks volumes that his on-field production is rarely what people really talk about. If you just think off the cuff about T.O.'s most iconic moments, you're probably thinking of this, or maybe this, but the only one of these where he's holding a football, he willingly places it down and gets blown up just seconds afterwards. But of course, that flair for the dramatic is exactly what we're looking for. And considering Owens famously called his quarterback gay, then had an extremely public feud with the next one, and then went on to very publicly weep over Tony Romo, there's no way you're going to convince me that the Manziel-T.O. dynamic isn't going to be the best television yet aired.
It's my quarterback.
So since we now have two receivers that may or may not believe they are literally God, now we just need someone to pull them into a constant cycle of infighting, and I know the perfect man for that job. Keyshawn Johnson was the #1 overall pick in 1996, truly becoming a trailblazer for the future of diva wide receivers. The title of his book is Give Me the Damn Ball, and he took pride in saying stuff like, "I threw my helmet down when no one else was doing that." He had zero issues going headfirst at teammates, the media, the NFL, and most infamously even his head coach John Gruden, which got him benched for the rest of the 2003 season. Now, of course, Keyshawn's play was never at the level of an AB or a TO, but he absolutely believed that it was. And with those three egos all on the same roster, I'll be shocked if we don't get a three-way brawl on day one of training camp. So, ready the presses. Now, speaking of press attention, our tight end position is going to move back from diva status and into just pure chaos with the inclusion of Aaron Hernandez. The story of Hernandez's meteoric rise and fall is tragic and fascinating, and in many ways was probably preventable. But speaking strictly in terms of his career in the league, he had the potential to go down as an all-time great before he pulled the rug out from under himself. Something often overlooked, though, by his general reputation is that Hernandez had more issues than just violent tendencies. Like in the locker room with the Patriots, he allegedly had wild swings in temperament where he'd go from hyper-aggressive and masculine to hypersensitive, from physical threats to shyly asking if he was good enough to play. Those remarks come from former teammate Brandon Lloyd, and here is another recollection from him about a warning he got from Wes Welker. I'm just gonna let you read this one out since I don't want YouTube to just instantly demonetize me. So there you go. With our skill position set as a merry band of completely unhinged individuals, our offense is loaded with talent, but you and I both know this team is a ticking time bomb in every direction you look. However, as long as the cameras are rolling on it, hopefully Roger will be proud of us regardless. Now, it's time to assemble our offensive line. This obviously poses a bit more of a challenge for our purposes because while controversy easily sticks to those spotlight skill position roles, down in the trenches it's a little harder to find a good headline. But of course, that doesn't mean they're not out there somewhere. Let's start with the obvious. Any horrifically dysfunctional offensive line needs to begin with Richie Incognito. Despite having one of the coolest names in the NFL, Incognito is one of the league's worst human beings. He's always carried a reputation as being a dirty player on the field, but Incognito is no doubt most infamous for being the ringleader of a bullying scandal within the Dolphins locker room. Just one voicemail Incognito left for Jonathan Martin, a teammate and his primary target, covered every base from racism to threatening his family to death threats, and according to Martin, this went on for over a year before he straight up left the team because it wasn't worth it. Now, Incognito says they've put that 2013 saga behind them, and since then he's only been involved in one little fight where he threw a dumbbell at a guy in LA Fitness, and another incident where he threatened to shoot up a funeral home. So, I think that means he's reformed? But anyways, that's one of our guard positions set, so I think it's a great idea to fill the other one in with just a pure disregard for the rules and go with the legendary Conrad Dobler. For those who haven't heard of Conrad's exploits in the trenches for the St. Louis Cardinals, he commonly gouged eyes, pulled face masks, and even bit opposing linemen in the name of good pass protection. For instance, when players would jump up to defend a pass, he would knock them as hard as he possibly could in the abdomen, just so they'd be a little bit slower to get their hands up next time. Now, how he got away with all of this, no one really knows, but if you guys remember the attention Ndamukong Suh was getting for his exploits, then Dobler would be a hell of a lot of fun. Moving over to tackle, there's really no better prospect than Tony Mandarich, a player not necessarily remembered for his own problems, but more so for every player that came into the league around him. Mandarich was drafted as an offensive tackle 2nd overall in 1989, touted at the time as possibly the best offensive line prospect in the history of the NFL. As it turns out, a lot of that hype had to do with steroid use, and apart from the Packers taking him 2nd overall, every other top 5 pick from his draft class has since been inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Fortunately for his own career, he was able to build a return with the Indianapolis Colts, but for the purposes of our team, Mandarich remains one of the most infamous tackles in NFL history, and that's not changing anytime soon. Moving back to the interior line at center, things get pretty tricky. Despite being one of the most important positions on the team, centers tend to be pretty low drama, and if they do become noteworthy, it's usually because they're already one of the best in the NFL. However, that doesn't mean we can't create a little bit of havoc. See, the center-to-quarterback exchange is an underrated part of football. So underrated that many people don't consider just how much a big guy's butt sweat can impact the ability to effectively throw the football. But it is absolutely real. Brady, Aikman, some of the best ever have talked about the perils of swamp ass.
I struggled with a wet football, and I used to make my centers change pants at halftime.
So with a less than Hall of Fame quarterback, we're set up to get a hell of a lot of mentions. However, there's not a singular butt sweat champion, so we're just going to go with one that's been unfortunately publicized in recent years with Evan Dietrich Smith, former backup center for the Green Bay Packers. In fact, Aaron Rodgers, who's a fellow backup for our team, once put this poor man on blast, telling the world that when he snapped the ball, sweat would splash up all over his hands and the football like this dude is Shamu or something. So with that excellent quote, I'm more than happy placing him with a less than Aaron Rodgers quarterback as our beloved starting center. That leaves us with just one position left at offensive tackle. Like center, there aren't a ton of other offensive tackles that can create headlines for us, but I do know one thing that generates attention, and that is pure annoyance. Anyone who watches their favorite team consistently knows about that one particular player that commentators can't ever shut up about, whether it's Darren Waller's past with drugs, James Conner's battle with cancer, or Adam Thielen spending his whole life in Minnesota. Yeah, we get it. So in attempt to capitalize on how much everybody just loves when this happens, we're enlisting Michael Orr as our other offensive tackle. It's been over a decade since The Blind Side was first released now, so you can bet your ass every time the offensive line walks onto the field, Joe Buck is going to talk about that movie. For that reason alone, I apologize to Orr in advance, but this is a business, Michael. However, with our blind side now protected, we've completed our insanely dysfunctional, headline-snatching offense. With any luck, this should be the top trending team on every sports website for years to come, unless it self-destructs completely. Sorry, hold on. What's that? Oh, okay. So, it turns out that Rodgers not actually a huge fan of what we're doing here, and I get it, he's dealt with his own share of controversies. I'll bring him around, but even still, this was a lot of fun to put together. So, if you guys are interested in a similar video to complete our roster with a dysfunctional defense, then let me know down in the comments. But, so far, despite how abhorrent most of the chemistry will be, the talent might be enough for us to get a few wins, and winning does cure all at the end of the day. Hell, at the end of this, we might have just enough playmakers to create the most absurd Super Bowl contender of all time. But then again, that is assuming that we can make it past week 3.